Panelin adı temel alanlarda sigorta koruma boşluklarının değerlendirilmesi, doğal afetler, siber güvenlik, hayat ve sağlık hizmetleri ve emeklilik, İçgörüler, kapsamı ve dayanıklılığı arttırma stratejileri. Bayağı uzun bir panelin üst ismi var. Özgür Bey de oradan gülüyor. Herhalde Özgür Bey belirledi panelin ismini, öyle tahmin ediyorum. Artık bir saat konuşacaklar bu kadar konu başlığını. Hayırlara vesile olsun diyelim. Moderatör de Özgür Obalı, Türkiye Sigorta Birliği Genel Sekreteri. Sayın Obalı'yı sahneye alalım. Ben panelistleri ve konuşmacıları çağıracağım bu arada. Sayın Obalı buyurun efendim.
Yüklediniz bize.
Estağfurullah, estağfurullah. Source Akademi Belgrad CEO'su Zorana Peyçik. Sayın Peyçik buyurun, please. Insurance Europe, Avrupa Sigorta Birliği Genel Direktör Yardımcısı Olaf Jones. SCOR Güney Akdeniz, Kuzey Afrika Yönetim Kurulu üyesi ve Pazar Yöneticisi Mark Büker. Howden Re Bölgesel CEO'su ve Başkanı Atınç Yılmaz. Sayın Yılmaz buyurun. Hemen ben sözü Sayın Obalı'ya bırakıyorum. Kolaylıklar diliyorum. Sahneden iniyorum. Sayın Obalı söz sizde.
Evet, sesim geliyor herhalde. Efendim, hepiniz hoş geldiniz. Bu çok değerli oturumda sizlerle beraber olmak gerçekten büyük bir onur. Ben girizgahı kısa tutup daha çok konuklarıma zaman vermek istiyorum ama öncesinde sabah beri özellikle bu senenin ana konusuna çok fokuslandık. Bütün konuşmacılar hem regülatör tarafından, yani düzenleyici otoritemiz tarafından, hem bakanlık tarafından hem de Sayın Başkan. Özellikle Charles Whitmore'a da özellikle teşekkür ederiz. Koruma açıkları üzerine çok güzel bir açılış konuşması oldu. Gördüğünüz gibi temel konularımız bu minvalde. Bizim de bu kadar kapsamlı bir başlık olmasının temel sebebi konu gerçekten çok geniş. Yani çok da ciddi kafa yorduğumuz bir alan. Çok değerli konuklarım var. Müsaade ederseniz bu saatten sonraki kısmı konuklarla İngilizce ilerleteceğim. Onun için lütfen Türk misafirlerimizden belki bir kulaklık ve headset desteği alma ihtiyacı olanlar için biraz zaman bırakayım ben konuklarımı tanıtırken diye sizlere bir uyarıda bulunmak istedim. İkinci bir de sizleri bilgilendirmek istediğim konu içeride, yani biz sizle seansı yaparken sahnede QR kod göreceksiniz. Sorularınızı oradan lütfen QR kodu taratıp bize iletirseniz ben buradan konuklarımıza aktarıyor olacağım. Hani el kaldırarak bir soru seansımız olmayacak. Ama bu sizi daha çok cesaretlendirecektir diye düşünüyorum. Bir de bunu ifade etmek istedim. Son olarak da bizim hemen program bitişinden sonra şimdiden peşinden söyleyeyim, yemek geçecek seansına. Hemen bir üst katta girişin, yani bizim buradaki merdivenden çıktıktan sonra sağda özel bir yemek salonunda alacağız öğlen yemeğini. Onu da peşinden söylemiş olayım. Böylece sizleri biraz motive etmiş olayım, yani bu kadar yoğun bir sürecin üstüne. Ben şimdi müsaadenizle birbirinden değerli konuklarımı sizlere tanıtmak istiyorum. Özellikle bu kısmı da Türkçe yapıyor olacağım. İlk başta Zorana ile başlayacağım. Şimdi Zorana Pezic, Source Akademi'nin yönetim kurulu başkanı, 25 yılı aşkın süredir sigorta ve restorasyon dünyasında çeşitli görevlerde bulundu. Ağırlıklı olarak da hayat dışında ve ekspertiziyle bugünlerde daha çok sürdürülebilir sigorta ve restoran konusuna kafa yoruyor kendisi. Kendisine hoş geldiniz. Very welcome, Zorana. I'm sorry, but I'm trying to make the introduction for the audience. Okay, I made a very good, Okay, very welcome.
Turkish is not very
okay,
well,
yeah. So my second panelist is Olaf. Olaf, I'll make the introduction in Turkish, sorry for that, but I'll go on in English, I promise. Kendisi Genel Direktör Yardımcısı Insurance Europe'da halihazırda çalışıyor. Yani Insurance Europe'un 2 numarası. Sağ olsun sadece bu program için kalktı geldi. Bizleri kırmadı. Mühendislik ve finans eğitiminden sonra Olaf birçok alanda çalışması öncesinde Oliver Wyman'da danışman olarak göreve başladı. Sonra sigorta sektöründe işte Fortis, Prudential, Ageas gibi sigorta şirketlerinden sonra da 11 senedir mevcut görevinde bu görevi yapıyor. Insurance Europe'un gerçekten çok önemli işlerine imza atıyorlar. Biz de oranın bir üyesiyiz Türkiye Sigorta Birliği olarak. Sonraki panelistim Mark Büker. 2022 yılından beri Sigorta'nın yönetim kurulu üyesi olarak görev yapıyor Mark. Güney Akdeniz, Kuzey Afrika piyasalarından, pazarlarından sorumlu kıdemli müdür kendisi. 20 yılı aşkın süredir de sektörde kendisi Mark. Kendisi çok değişik bir şeyi var, CV'si var. Radyo sahipliği ve kuruculuğu gibi. Halihazırda da mevcut görevinin yanında da STK'larda 2 tane önemli STK'da Türk İş Adamları, Türk-Fransız İş Adamları Derneği Başkanlığı, yanlış ifade etmiyorsam, bir de Türk Frankofon Okulları Mezunları Derneği Başkanlığı'nı yürütüyor. Mark hoş geldin. Ve son olarak Atınç'ı birçoğumuz zaten sektörden biliyoruz ama yine de kendisi Howden Türkiye ve Howden bölge CEO'su olarak görev yapıyor. Uzun yıllardır, 29 yılı aşkındır neredeyse sektör deneyimi var. Hem reassurance hem brokerage tarafında kendisi çok önemli işleri imza atıyor. Halihazırda da bizim panelimizde de işin aslında biraz daha saha tarafını birlikte değerlendiriyor olacağız inşallah. Tekrar hoş geldiniz.
Hoş bulduk.
Evet, very welcome. After I introduce you the distinguished guests, I want to begin with maybe Olaf. I mean, if you don't mind, Zorana. I mean, yeah. First of all, Olaf, we know that Insurance Europe and GFIA Secretariat, as you really work hard on underlying the protection gaps and carry the issue to the top of the agenda of the policymakers. What are the key findings that you highlight in your studies? Maybe you can figure out your recent reports.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thanks very much for the invitation here from the Insurance Association of Turkey and Özgür. I think that, and first of all, just a very quick introduction. I'm from Insurance Europe. We represent the European insurers, all type of insurers, life, non-life, reinsurers and mutuals across Europe. And we're very happy that Turkey is one of our founding members. So we cover a geographic approach in Europe. We're also an active member, and in fact, Secretariat of the Global Federation of Insurance Associations. And this is an association which comprises 40 members and 1 associate observer, and covers 89% of the insurance premium worldwide. So it's very representative of the global insurance industry, covering all the continents. And in the discussions, we realized at the global level that protection gaps is really a global problem. Something obviously we're working on very much in Europe, but also very much a global problem, and one that is growing. And so we decided a year or so ago to write a report on the protection gaps, and we purposely called it not insurance gaps, but protection gaps, because insurance plays a really important role, as we just heard in the presentation and all of the discussions today, but the protection gaps goes beyond insurance, and it really needs to be tackled as a total problem and in a very holistic way. And I think the report looked at all types of protection gaps and then identified 4 key ones: the pension protection gap, the cyber, health, and the natural catastrophe, of course. Now, these 4 gaps were chosen because of their relevance, because of their size, their global presence, the impact on people's lives and livelihoods, and also the expected evolution over time. And I think, as was mentioned in one of the earlier speeches, we also identified 4 megatrends which are affecting these these gaps. And those are, of course, climate change, but also technology, the demographic changes, and the macroeconomic and political changes that are occurring across the world. And these are affecting these gaps in different ways, and unfortunately helping to drive the gaps overall larger, although we are starting to see some significant improvements in certain areas and countries. Now, in terms of the overall size, we try to estimate the gap based in a dollar amount. And of course, we recognize when we looked at the dollar amount that this is looking at money. And of course, the impact of these gaps also affects lives and livelihood. And in fact, in the case of NatCat, a significant number of deaths, unfortunately, across the world. But looking on a cost basis, we estimated in this report that the total protection gap was about 2.8 trillion across the world. Now, you'll hear lots of numbers. You've heard some already. You'll hear some more, no doubt, in this panel. And I think, of course, the numbers sometimes vary in their basis and their currency. The one thing that's common with all the numbers is that they're very large and, unfortunately, as I mentioned, in some cases getting larger. Or certainly have got larger in recent times. Now, if we start with the pension gap, there we estimate the annualized pension gap is about 1 trillion, and that's overall probably the largest protection gap around the world. Now, in terms of the other difference between the pension gap is it's actually a stock of a gap. Most of the other gaps are more annual in their impact. In terms of pension, we have built up a massive pension gap, and we estimate in the report that the accumulated pension gap was about $50 trillion. And of course, this is compounded by the aging population around the world, and the global share, for example, of over 65s, who we could act as a proxy for those who need pension, has grown from 6.8% of the population in year 2000 to 9.3% of the population in 2020. And that's expected to double going forward in the next 50 years. And in terms of what that means, in practice, that means compared to 1970, an average person after the retirement age would live 16 years in terms of women, and now they live up to 24 years. And for men, it's moved from 20 years to 12 years to 20 years. So that means an extra 8 years they need income to continue living in a reasonable way. And that extra 8 years, of course, is a key part of this protection gap. And like all the gaps, it varies a lot across the world. Then moving on to cyber, the cyber protection gap is estimated as the second largest overall at about just under 1 trillion. Of course, it's quite difficult to measure the size of this gap, and the impact, of course, really varies. Of course, if you talk about a cyber attack on people's access to Netflix, obviously the impact is maybe financially high, but in terms of livelihoods is pretty low, and lives pretty low. On the other hand, we are now starting to see cyber attacks on hospitals and preventing operations even, and impacting infrastructure and vital infrastructure, dams, etc. Here, there can be real lives at risk, as well as significant impact, disruption to business, etc. So while the cyber protection gap at the moment is very different in nature and quite hard to quantify, it's also a very important gap going forward, or already important gap, and one we expect to grow. Here, insurance is relatively smaller part of the solution, but is really growing and is growing very fast. And we can talk a bit later about some of the ways in which insurance can help and what's needed to allow this gap to be closed. Then we touch on health protection. This is also potentially very large. It's between just under 1 trillion to maybe up to 4 trillion, again, depending on how you measure it. And it's really a global issue. In some cases, of course, there's very little health protection, and other cases there's relatively high cover, but overall there's a significant growth in the health protection gap, and that's again linked to the demographics. It's linked to the improvements in medicine, also the cost of those improvements, and also improvement in lifestyle, in the standard of living across the world, which sets expectations and increases the availability overall of health, possibility of health protection, but of course creates a financing gap. And finally, the natural catastrophe gap, which I won't go into a lot of detail because you've heard a lot of statistics already, and I think there we'll hear more from other members of the panel. But suffice to say, it's a really important gap, affecting livelihoods and lives and business incredibly. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I just want to, a few minutes ago they raised the Slido on, and we have immediately have a question. I'll raise it to you. Okay, thank you very much, Olaf, for the first session. I mean, I think I may pass to Mark. Mark, I mean, you are very keen on, and your expertise is much more on NatCat risks. Can you please draw us a picture on the present situation in NatCat protection gaps, both in global and local perspective? Olaf already mentioned all the, the big umbrella. Maybe we may drill down the NatCat with you, maybe then pass to Zorana from the cyber perspective. Please, the floor is yours.
With pleasure, Özgür Bey. Hello everyone. I will also speak in English. Hepinize tekrar merhabalar. İngilizce yapmam belki daha iyi. Yabancı konuklarımız için ayrıca birçok İngilizce terim var, göreceksiniz. O halde başlayalım. This morning Charles told me some of the info that I will be showing you, but again let's see together how we can operate this. We are in a more uncertain and volatile world than ever. That we know. 2023 has been the warmest year ever, and on 2024, just on September, we unfortunately had two big events. Boris, a storm which originated in the moist air from the Genoa region and went to 7 different countries in Europe. The cost of Boris is expected to be around 2 billion euros, according to Guy Carpenter or Gallagher or other modelers, and it is the most severe flood event in Europe, 10 years. And then currently we have Helen hurricane. The cost of it is around $7 to $10 billion, and the economic loss is expected to be around $30 billion. So you see, we already have a protection gap there, even in the States, 10 million, 30 million. Then we'll not be speaking about it today, but we really need to speak about cyber risk and the trillion challenge. As Olaf said, there's a trillion. When you look at this number, it is tremendous. The cost of cyber attacks in 2024 is expected to be $10 trillion. I don't miss any zeros. $10 trillion. It's the third largest economy in the world after US and China. And the protection gap here at the cyber risk is much more than 90%. So the protection gap is much more on this topic, and I believe Özgür Bey agreed to make another panel for cyber risk. And then social unrest, which is pretty much as a consequence of the global warming, because there is more social tension to go to the natural resources, and we have many countries having inflation and social tension. We always say, well, I am in a well-protected country, and it won't happen there. So I'll just give you 2 examples. This picture is taken from New Caledonia. This is French Indies. This is May 2024, and we also had riots in France in June 2023. So unfortunately, we should never say not where I live. So I like that definition of the protection gap, which is the difference between the amount of insurance that is economically beneficial and the amount of coverage actually purchased. And what is interesting in the protection gap is that there is a layer of self-protection, of self-insurance, which is very important, and where we should always have this layer. And, well, for our industry, we try to make all the risks insurable, right? So that is our aim here, to make more uninsurable risks, unknown risks, to be insured risks, so that we can treat them. So that is a graph on some events, and that is showing you the protection gap on these different events. So you see that on the American part of it, except unfortunately Haiti, which is 1% penetration rate only, according to the economic losses. Even you see Hurricane Harvey had only 24% penetration. Hurricane Harvey, you know, is in Texas. So according to states in the United States, you can also have these differences. When you look at the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami 2011, this is only 16% penetration, whereas Japan is a very developed country. Canterbury, New Zealand, 75%. So we said this morning, I believe Uğur Bey told us the figure, 106 billion US dollars for the Turkish quake, 6 billion insured loss only. I would humbly add another figure to this, 6 billion, and the company's retention on the Turkish market is around 1 billion, 1.5 billion. So that means that the insured loss on the Turkish quake went to the international reinsurance at around 75%. And in this, I'm also including the retention of the TCIP pool, which is around 800 million euros. So that gives an idea, and that is maybe something that insurers, Turkish reinsurers, and reinsurers should work on. So the protection gap, we already said it. The global protection gap is around 72% on natural catastrophe. So we talked about secondary perils. That is where Charles stole some from me. So secondary perils are the ones which are not primary perils, but secondary perils are not so secondary, I would say. Primary perils is where we expect mega loss, where they are well monitored, and where there is a model. Secondary perils, you don't have the three of this. But as a matter of fact, as the secondary perils are always related to weather, we see more and more secondary perils coming on. And we are hit on this. So our challenge on this is to enhance the data, to improve our modeling capacities where we can model them. We have many perils that we do not know how to model, even though actually we find a way, but we really need much more mapping data on these secondary perils so that we can bring the capacity to cover them. So the annual insured loss on climate change are surpassing 100 billion, and here you see the annual insured loss. So here, what is interesting, it's the primary perils and the secondary perils, and you see how secondary perils are much more costly now than the primary perils, and it is why the reinsurance sector made a shift slowly but surely to de-invest from the secondary peril, meaning giving much less capacity on those secondary perils at a much more price, or proposing to the companies to have much more retentions. And you see how on the cumulative losses, the secondary perils are now much more than the primary perils. And these secondary perils are growing with the weather. So we can expect that in the coming years, the trend will continue. So the good news is that the reinsurance capacity gap is narrowing. So from 2023, we have seen as reinsurers that the price adequacy was much more there on the market. So there was an excess capacity coming to the market. And then you see that the supply capital, be it traditional capital or alternative capital, is increasing. So here you find first that prices are good, and it has triggered a new reinsurance cycle.
Good news.
So this, I believe, we can make a map on how to go much better in that challenge, and this is generally what we keep saying for years. The protection gap hasn't much changed for years because the insurable values are also growing in the years. So generally we need some backing from the government to foster the building codes and the infrastructure to prepare long-term sustainability roadmaps, as sustainability is becoming more and more a challenge for insurers and reinsurers. Pooling it and, as again Charles was saying, develop partnerships between public and private sectors. I am going a bit rapidly here, Özgür Bey, because I believe we will be speaking about all these. So this chart, we used it in 2018. So 6 years after, you see that some of the ticks, some of the boxes are okay. We are going good progress on it, but we still need a bit more efforts from all the stakeholders, all the ecosystems, be it governments, insurance company, reinsurance company, regulators. So let's finish by this, because I believe that is important with the reinsurance renewals ahead of us, what we see in 2024, 2025. First, as we said, the global reinsurance capacity is there, is the highest at the decade, and from our measurements, the market needs globally a $50 billion capacity every year. So that is where the reinsurers are growing, $50 billion every year. As said, the secondary perils, we will not be going back pre-2023 on how we were covering them, especially on proportional basis, especially that there are risks on all these accounts that we don't particularly price, be it, well, we talked about property, but we can also talk about motor own damage, or we can talk about PA. So we don't have scenarios, enough strong scenarios to this. Third, well, we had an important back on track move. I mean, when we say back on track, the track being what we maybe had 15 years ago. So with minimum premiums, with subsidy clauses, etc., on proportional basis, and also on the pricing adequacy. And having said that, we know that there is a big competition, and we are all in this competition, insurers or reinsurers. So the retention levels have been increased, the proportional programs have been restructured or with some shortfalls, etc. And then the cost of reinsurance dramatically increased for companies. So we believe that this will lead to a market discipline, and thanks to that market discipline, insurance company will be able to foster their capital base. So when you have more capital, of course, you buy less reinsurance. And you buy less reinsurance where reinsurance is expensive, especially on the low layers of your retention. So if you cover the retention with a solid capital base, well, you have more bearable reinsurance costs. And 5, well, this is not a wishful thinking, but that is what we see in the coming at the precedent renewals during all these years. All this year, reinsurers are remaining disciplined, so the prices are not much changing. If there are decreases, it is because a correction was made, especially in Japan, for instance. A very severe correction was made last year, no loss correction, so this year no need to correct it anymore. And capacity, so that is the good news, because that is what we have said, capacity is there, and capacity may increase with your needs. We know that there are much more need because of inflation, but this capacity come with adequate terms and conditions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. I want to pass the floor to Zorana. As Mark mentioned, hopefully it will be much more higher than the net cat. Mark mentioned that the 72% is the protection gap in net cat. What is the situation on the cyber side? Zorana, I want to raise with the rising frequency of cyber attacks nowadays. We also in Turkey really have some very crucial and critical cases, unfortunately. Where are the most significant gaps you think in cyber insurance coverage today? And can you give some examples from the maybe Central Eastern Europe? Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Özgür. We heard today that gaps are quite visible, obviously in cyber field also. Maybe the fastest growing gap is in the cyber insurance field.
Good news.
Is that expected? From my point of view, yes. Actually, in the last few decades, economies have become more and more dependent on technologies, which is brilliant because technologies offer new opportunities, entering into new markets, achieving higher profits. People and economies are connected more than ever. But on the other side, technologies expose businesses to some new threats, to some new risks, like the cyber risk is. And for example, the global cost of cybercrime recorded in 2022, I just have to say that all these numbers that we can find differ here and there. But what I find is that the global cost of cybercrime recorded in 2022 is around 8.5 trillion US dollars. And there are some predictions that it will grow. And by the end of 2027, the cost will reach 24 trillion US dollars, which is quite huge. As these threats evolve, and in such environment, normally insurance companies play very important and crucial role, trying to mitigate the risk, to transfer the risk, and to help clients to, let's say, to fight against all these threats. And yes, demand is growing, and is growing rapidly, also in Europe, in CE, and worldwide. And also the cyber insurance market is growing. So the gross written premium recorded in 2023 were around 14 billion US dollars, and there are also some predictions that it will be doubled by 2027. So the main drivers for such huge demand, there are a few of them. First of all, there is a high-profile cyber attacks, such as breaching, affecting major retailers, healthcare providers, even governmental institutions. Also, there is a huge pressure of regulators. For example, in Europe, it's GDPR, but we can find a lot of similar data protection laws worldwide, so the pressure is quite high. And at least there are huge financial losses which should be covered, and they are really high. For example, we are all aware that data recovery or forensic investigation are extremely expensive. So that are the drivers, and the insurance market is expanding, the premium is growing, but insurers and reinsurers are facing with some challenges. First of all, it's rapidly evolving threats. We have technology that are developing on the one side, and on the other side, there are cyber criminals developing their methods and their theories. So insurers must stay ahead of these developments in order to offer right capacities or right covers. Also, there is a question of accumulation because it's really difficult to calculate exposures, because we all know that one cyber event can hit many entities. So we can say it's really difficult or impossible to calculate total exposure. And that is one of the, I think, biggest questions for insurers and reinsurers. Of course, there is also lack of data. Insurance as industry is based on a long statistical series, but in this case, this is relatively new risk. There is a lack of data, and so for the insurers, it's very difficult to predict the future and the future events. And of course, the pricing. Setting the right premium rates at this moment is very difficult because the costs of cyber attacks can vary widely and depending on the nature of the attacks. So it's really challenging for the insurance to set up right premium rates for the cyber events. But still, insurers are trying to support their clients, to support economies. They're trying to make some specific covers, but there is always but. As cyber risk evolves constantly, and insurance companies struggle to keep up with the new types of cyber attacks and emerging threats. And sometimes insurance companies are not so fast to understand, to calculate, to predict the events, and that creates the shortfalls. And for example, there are a lot of examples of shortfalls in cyber insurance. I will mention just a few today. For example, a company might be hit with a cutting-edge type of cyber attack, meaning that cyber criminals are using AI to bypass advanced security systems. And for example, that wasn't foreseen at the moment when the policy was drafted. And this could lead to the lack of coverage, for example. And also, many cyber policies contain exclusions, and insurers are willing to write the risks they are familiar with, so all the others are excluded. And in some cases, these exclusions can create gaps. Also, in practice, it is quite often that some businesses might have cyber insurance policies with the limits and sub-limits, and in some cases, those limits are not sufficient to cover actual losses. And actually, the gap becomes evident when the actual loss of cyber event far exceed actually what the policy covers. And one of the most important events can be cyber attack regarding the business interruption, meaning the loss of income when the business is disrupted, yes. And also the cyber policies often defines what is exactly the event, and there is always a time limitation. So combination of definition of the event and time limitation can also lead to the lack of coverage. There is then again there is policies which defines only malicious events, and there is a question: what about non-malicious events and human errors? And we are all aware that human errors can be really huge. For example, an employee can accidentally delete some crucial data, and that can cause a huge financial loss. And what I want to mention today is also the reputational damage, which might be caused by cyber attack. Usually, as far as I know, cyber policies does not cover reputational damage, and the costs of rebuilding brand or rebuilding trust are also really huge, and this is kind of gap in cyber policies. So these are the examples that
Thank you very much for deepening in the issue. I mean, you summarized maybe all the dimensions of the cyber insurance gaps, but I will come maybe in the second round. How can we balance these, the premium and the thing, it's the main issue for all insurance.
Yeah, the pricing is really challenging.
Is very delicate. Yeah. So thank you. I want to pass to Atınç now. I mean, we mentioned all the risks and gaps from different perspectives, very high level. But you have a great expertise in terms of the distribution, Atınç. I mean, from this side, can you access the gaps from the distribution side, if you don't mind? What are your key findings that cause this gap, according to your, experiences and views and touch to the market from either consumer side and from the intermediary side?
Well,
Thank you.
thank you, Özgür. I mean, I'm the one probably between the now and the lunch, and distribution one of the key subjects, right? I mean, honestly, if you cannot distribute, there is no point that you have the stocks in the
Yeah,
shop.
yeah.
And that's how I see this matter. I mean, since the morning I have seen it. We have listened to all the distinguished panelists and the presentations. We have a lot of products, stocks, ideas, but the bottom line, if you are not able to distribute in a quality way, effective way, it doesn't mean that it's going to convert the benefit to the economies. I was talking to my daughter. She's 17 years, and we were having the chat that what is going to be the future professions. What will be the profession of the future? Because she's going to apply the university. I'm sure you have the similar time. If not, hopefully you will have it. So it's a highly hot debate at home. And one of the subjects came to insurance. And is insurance going to be the profession of the future? Is there a future for the insurance? Then I remember 30 years back, and thank you, Özgür, you introduced me 29 years in the sector. However, it is more than 29
Really?
years. Yes, 30 years, it's even worse on the one side. But when I started my insurance journey, we have organized at the university a panel. And if Levent Bey here, I'm sure that I've seen him. Maybe he was hungry and he already gone for the lunch. He was a panelist. And then he asked me, Atınç, what's going to be the subject matter of your panel? Well, we talked with the friends. We said that, well, I mean, in Turkey, insurance, it is on the ground. Either you're a real estate agency or insurance, whatsoever. So we have put the name is the profession of the future, insurance. And 30 years after, when I was listening to panel, and let's look at the big picture. I mean, when you compare us with the other geographies, economies, Turkey, still the penetration of insurance 5 to 6%. We have just get the experience, the last earthquake in the Maraş. Then there's a problem. There's a problem of, in my experience, distribution, the quality of the distribution. That's how I want to tackle. On my last 30 years, I had the privilege to work in Turkey 15 years and 15 years international markets. And I have seen in this room many of my colleagues from Middle East, with the Asian markets, they are already here. I can make the statement that the products that we use, the insurance policies that we have, the coverages we have, honestly not below the standards of the international levels. So what we have, either the property policies or motor policies or liability policies or the solutions, honestly, that's the good news for us. As a Turkey, we are ahead, we are quite good. Yes, there are tons of ways to improvement, like even the cyber insurance. I think there's no definition of cyber risk because whatever you build tomorrow, it will be irrelevant tomorrow. Build today, it will be irrelevant tomorrow. Things are changing fast. Or maybe we are not even talking this panel, sustainability risk, climate risks. It's coming very aggressively. Maybe in the next year's Sheila, on the maybe next year's panel, maybe we should talk about the sustainability, the climate change, because these are relevant to our world. So in my opinion, in Turkey, we don't have in the stocks a huge gap on the protection side, on the product itself. Where we have the real challenge, how we distribute. All right. So in Turkey, we have on the distribution side, as you know, many of my Turkish colleagues, peers, fully aware of it. We do have a big agency networks. We have banks, we have direct sales, we have brokers networks. So these are our distribution network, and also technology is also coming up. Having said that, the quality is always makes the difference. Do you know that one of the largest, most developed insurance markets in the UK, which is the third largest economy when it comes to insurance premium production, GWP, $350 billion. They do have only 7,000 insurance agencies, inclusive of brokers. 7,000. When I look at the numbers in Turkey, we are 16, 17.
Yeah.
So does it tell to us that are we short on the distribution number, i.e. the number, quantity? Well, I mean, just looking at the big picture, yes, UK, big country, 7,000 distribution channels, they do a job well, and then they are able to introduce the products, whereas in Turkey we have 16, 17 agencies, brokers, etc., and still we have 5%. So I think we need to put the optics a bit more where the problem it is, if we are talking the protection gap, and how we can accelerate. I mean, despite all the challenges, Turkey, I mean, today we are with the Asian Review, Middle East Review, the organization has organized this event, so it's a more comparable, the colleagues are in the room. Put together the large markets in the Middle East, Saudi and UAE, Turkey is today bigger in terms of the premium production. When we look at the country, it is a big country, but it's nowhere around. So in the last year, we closed $22 billion premium production, which is, when we are talking a $1 trillion economy, 2%, Özgür? Yes, more or less. When we look at the world average, not where Atatürk has put us the gain, we need to be at the civilized economies, which is 7%. So we should, by tomorrow, aim to make our size of the market double, if not triple. It should be $60 to $70 billion. So that will give us the right momentum, because we are behind. When it comes to the same question, how are we going to cover the gap? We have the products, it's coming from the reinsurance markets. We have even the alternative markets that we have seen, the bonds market, ILS. Everybody's trying to give us or to sell the capacity product to this country, but we are not able to absorb and able to distribute. So if we are not able to distribute, what is the consequences? We have experienced last year, unfortunate Marash. The economic loss to our economy is $106 billion, right? And insurance industry was only able to cover $6 billion. When we look at the other regions, normally you should expect 30, 40% insurance companies, industries can cover it. So the gap, which is in simple mathematics, $40 billion, it's our money. It's the money, it has gone from our economy, it is our increased tax, it is the lack of infrastructure, it's the poverty. It comes to us with all the bombarded things. So it comes to the back the same thing. So the distribution. Distribution is important. When we look at the product side, that the country, the brains, the insurance industry, when I look at our individuals, I don't see anywhere that we are below the par when I compare to the international levels. But when we come to the distribution, we have homeworks to do. We have immediate actions to be done. And there are ways. It's not only the shoulder of the intermediaries or brokers or agencies. I will say the government itself should step up. So maybe we should look at our compulsory or obligatory insurance world. Can we do more? Can we do maybe a bit more strategic industries? Should we start to look at it? Because, you know, in Turkey, we are a natural catastrophe country. So since 1900 until beginning of 2023, we have, as a Turkey, suffered 260 natural catastrophes, which has caused the lives or material damage. What does this translate? In the last 123 years, in average, whether we know it or not, 2 natural catastrophes hit this country, big or small. And it's the statistics there. So we are a natural catastrophe. We are suffering from this problem. When it comes, it suffers to our economy, it comes to our people, to lives, to society. On my angle, the government should step in, and then we should not only do the TCIP, the DAS insurance that we call it, we should go beyond. We should look at the commercial part. We should look at the manufacturing units, the factories. Do they buy the coverage? Because it's becoming a moral and social responsibilities. And or we look at our compulsory insurance panel, the matrix, as a Turkey. Do we have the right balances, just considering the realities of this country? And then, obviously, we need to have the culture and awareness, which should be embedded by the probably Minister of Education, how we are growing up, educating our people, children, the mindsets. Insurance is an important part of our life. Why? Because it protects us. So there's a work to be done also the education side to increase the awareness. And the third one is accessibility. Accessibility means distribution, the products. But there we have this, I think this matter, we have a lot of numbers, but the quality of the distribution agents or the channels, are they good enough? So, or are they relevant? Or they just selling only one product and they ignoring the rest of the products that we should make it? And the last but not the least, obviously, you can have all the components unless you also have to have affordability. If you have a very expensive insurance product comes to the market, or from our reinsurance markets, if they charge too much to Turkey, and then our people with these pressures of inflation and the economy is not able to afford to buy the products, then you also have missing the angle. So affordability also, according to my reading of the case, is another important component. So then we need to link with the government economic policies, how it's going to impact to our life. So yeah, distribution is the key, but there is a lot of things to address. I want to give just this overview how I see it.
Thank you very much. I mean, very valuable. I mean, we don't deserve this penetration ratio. I mean, it's today I read a article from some of the academics which is very close to insurance, and he said that it's earlier the history of insurance began in Izmir in 1864 in Turkey.
Yeah.
So it's going much.
Culture is there.
Yeah,
yes.
culture is. I mean, yeah, culture is everything.
We should all proud
so
of it.
we have good news. We are really working hard with the TOP and the SAIC to really increase the awareness, and there's a program on for the agents as well. So hopefully we'll. Yeah, but when you address and underline the policymakers, I want to return to Olaf maybe. So Olaf, I mean, you have really a hard effort to convince the policymakers in Brussels, and you really deal with the country version and also the European Parliament perspective. It's really a very valuable and hard job, I know. To the Turkish side, how can insurance industry maybe better engage with the policymaker to raise the awareness about the importance of the coverages in these areas? Maybe you can, address some lessons from, from the global best practices as well. I mean, we have only 20 minutes, so we can't maybe the last session, and then we have some questions. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Okay, thanks very much. I think the good news is there are things we can do. I think first of all, it's worth recognizing, even within the case of NatCat, the actual percentage of gap has got lower. I think it used to be about back in between 1990 and 2000, the average share of losses was only 22% covered by insurance. That increased to 33% between 2010 and 2020, and now in that group that's been measured, it's up to about 40%. Unfortunately, as we also heard in the numbers, the absolute size of, in terms of the numbers, has gone up. So although the gap has got smaller, the uncovered costs and losses have gone up in terms of dollars, euros, Turkish lira. But steps have been taken, and the industry is obviously using innovation, as we heard, and other techniques to try to close those gaps. But there are other things that can be done, and I think that in the report we did, we really looked at the whole range of case studies of where has it been successful, and we saw quite a few. And so I think in the case of, first of all, awareness, I think I think that's probably the number one sort of step that can be taken across all the protection gaps, In the case of pensions, it's about making sure people understand how much they have in their, or how much they will have at retirement, which is often not enough, and how much they will need. And that's where a government can step in, and in a number of countries there are national websites that each individual can go to, can see all their pensions in one place, can have tools to estimate how much they need, and then they can see what the gap is and how much they need can save. And then insurance companies and other companies can sit with the person and work out which products can they use to how can they increase their savings to close that gap. So that's one thing that can be done. In terms of NatCat, it's often about making sure individuals are aware of the risks they're facing. So in some countries, for example, France, when you buy or rent a house, you are given information about the risks you face in terms of flood, earthquake, windstorm, etc. And that can help sensitize people around, should I be buying in this area? Should I be building in this area? And the importance of buying insurance, because I need protection. And that's something that we've advocated should be done across all countries, because that can really help. In the case of cyber, we see that, I think the one study we quote in the paper that says up to 90% of incidents or costs can be avoided just by good practice and by awareness. So that's sometimes referred to as cyber hygiene. So making sure every staff member knows about the importance of guarding their password, changing their password, understanding how certain types of emails and SMSs can trigger a cyber event, and testing them on a regular basis. And their insurers are playing an important role, because often, or I think almost always, when buying cyber protection, the company has to go through a cyber audit, a safety audit, to make sure that company has good practices in place, has good protection, good systems, and are minimizing the risk before the insurer is willing to sell. And then the insurance company sometimes is not just offering protection, but also services to help them keep those protection levels high. And if something does happen, either an attack or an internal mistake, then the insurance company can sometimes provide services or work with a partner to help the company recover quickly. And those costs are typically covered by the insurance policy. And I think in terms of the health, of course, it goes without saying, with health, understanding how to eat well, how to exercise, prevention is better than cure. And so again, their awareness can help. And across all of these, insurers can play a role, but really we need support from governments too.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, it's very important. I really thank you for underlining this. We try to, transform the role of insurers in Turkey as well, from the reactive perspective to proactive. I mean, to mitigate the risks, and maybe we have to close the gaps a little bit from this side, not to the payback side, but to prevent and to make increase the awareness, and then the underline some risks, and then we can help the society in this way. Thank you very much. So I want to pass to maybe Mark. Let me, sorry for that. I can go with Atinç, change the sequence. So how can we make this? I want to ask the same question, so that we can, how can the insurance industry better engage with the customer and raise awareness about the importance of coverage in the mentioned areas? I mean, Olaf mentioned it from the policymaker side. Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, this is how to better engage with the customers, our touch points, and the quality of our service that we are able to deploy. I mean, I see that, one cases we have seen on the Maraş earthquake, that the TCIP or DASK insurance policies, I think it was in the range of 50%, if my memory was not wrong. 57, today is 56 when I just check on the website. So be it 55, 57. But the point is, what was the coverage level really impacted and be relevant to the lives? So even the people that who bought those policies, 50%, say, for the sake of discussion, what percentage of this 50% really make them and then able to rebuild the houses? This is, again, the quality of advices, quality of the delivery. It comes to the same point. You may, again, when I look at the DUSC or TCIP in English, the terminology, it's a decent, good size, and it's a working model. Now, we heard even in the other parts of the world, in Taiwan, they do have the similar models. In fact, when the TCIP, the Marash earthquake happened, we organized a panel in Dubai where Aftab and I was on the panel, and the first question came, if similar earthquake happens in our countries, can we take the model of Turkey and implement this kind of TCIP type of insurance programs? Apologies. So this is the program itself, even though the regulator, they try to make it even an upgrade this product with the bringing is an additional cover. The quality of the distribution, i.e. when people they buy, they should know what they do buy. The distribution agents, channels, they should have obligations to tell and educate, to give the right product. They should have they should have the liability when they tell the people. The authorities, when they see the policies, they should have a kind of approved certificate. We should have a way to make sure that even the products delivered to the customers, that it's working and it's going to be relevant. If not, what happens? If not, the insurance products that they buy, it lowers the credibility of the insurance sector. It lowers the people's trust to the insurance, and they just go it just for the tick the box. So the education of the distribution channels, a better control, and able to provide them to better understanding to the people. I think these are all in the ecosystem, if I may say that, we should be able to make it. Otherwise, the product can be perfect, like the iPhone 16, whatever. There are hundreds of features, but I'm just using it just to talking. You just ignore the rest, and because you don't have it. So it is this is the way. So I am also sitting as a board member of Turkish Insurance Brokers Association. That's what we have, the obligations that we do talk. Because when we see the brokers, they do have, with the clients, we try to give a bit more educated views to our customers. That is one way. Today, the brokers' share in the market is 15 to 16%. When we look at Europe, it's 35, 40%. So one way to have much more developed, educated intermediaries or the agencies that we should organize, help them, how they can become much more powerful with the help of the insurance companies. These are the basics that we should relentlessly and we should continuously monitor and to make the execution.
Thank you for the alphabet of the engagement. Thank you. So may I return to Zorana? I mean, maybe I can ask you. I mean, he mentioned the affordability. So, what you can say? How do we can balance the affordability and comprehensive coverage of these for small and medium-sized, for example, businesses, especially because the cyber is much more risk for the companies than the people stand alone. Can you maybe cover the situation focused on cybersecurity? Maybe you can make it, diversified to all other areas as well. I mean, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, affordability is one of the questions regarding cybersecurity. There is another one, which is insurability. But let's talk about affordability. For the small and medium enterprises, there is always a problem with the premium rates. So what do insurance do? They're trying to create some products to be affordable to the clients, but they usually offer a small scope of cover. So in that case, I mentioned the situations in my previous speech, how the clients can see that the cover is not sufficient. Maybe they're buying a small scope of cover because the product is affordable, And when a loss occurs, there is the problem. The cover is not sufficient. So creating affordable covers for the clients could be a short-term solution from my point of view, but in a long term, that creates shortfalls.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the second issue in cyber is insurability, because nowadays, for example, malware and I'm not IT site, so I have to check the real name. Mass malware and mass cloud outage are events that are covered by traditionally covered by cyber insurance policies, but many other threats and new risks, they are considered as uninsurable, and this is one of the problems for the insurers to make the scope of cover wider and to cover not only mass malware and mass cloud outage, and they have to cover other risks to avoid gaps.
Yeah, it's a very delicate,
Yes, they are picking here and
mathematics,
there.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, they are under the risks they are familiar with, and
Thank-
where they can calculate the potential exposure.
Yeah. But this is, I think, the responsibility of the insurance, I think,
Yeah.
So, thank you very much. So, maybe, sorry for now the last one, but, Mark, maybe I can raise you the not so hard question. So how can we, in the global perspective and the Turkish practice, you are much more familiar with Turkey. How can we narrow these, or close these gaps? Okay, briefly, what measures have to be taken as a, experienced Turkish market, viewer from outside. So okay.
Very many thanks for the question. I believe the answer is a panel of 2 days to this. Well, when we speak about affordability of the price, I would say the adequacy of the price, because the risk has a price, and we all know it. There is a price which includes the risk itself, the distribution, and the general expenses of the insurer, of the broker, of the reinsurer, and so there is a price. If the price on the primary market is not the right price, someone in the value chain will lose something. So,
just a small interview now. To what extent do you think that price is very critical for the Turkish market? For the buyers of the insurance product, how critical are
you mean primary buyers?
Yeah, primary buyers.
People,
yeah.
or
people,
insurance companies?
People, let's say.
I mean, that is where we see inflation, where the cost of living is becoming difficult. And this is not only Turkey, this is for other markets as well. So I believe insurers and reinsurers, we have a duty of communication, and it starts from there. Paying an insurance policy is not a tax.
Yeah.
I mean, we should write this in all our offices. It is not a tax. It serves someone somewhere. And unfortunately, people are getting insured after a claim, after a big claim. We shouldn't wait for the claims. But I mean, that is cultural. And well, you can I don't know. We can ask to the audience maybe how many of you are seeing your policy or your homeowner policy price increasing, and you said, I haven't done anything. Why am I paying much more to this? This is my case in France. Well, in France we have a different scheme where there is no zoning. Each of us pay the same amount of premium because it's completely mutualized. But it's again a cultural thing, and I believe it starts from the communication. Then there are sets of measures. We talked about it here, and we have good experiences all around the world, and we have even experiences with not insured people as well. We do have schemes in the world, like in Morocco, for instance. Even if they are not insured, there is a fund which pays out by way of a parametric reinsurance, gives a fund to the state when the parametric is triggered, and so the state can indemnify the non-insured. Of course, if you are insured, you have, let's say, 100% of your damage which is paid. If you are not insured, you have much, much less, 20%, 30%. But again, it's a tool to protect societies,
yes,
which is our raison d'être, our mission. I mean, that is what we are missing, I believe. We are completely focused on our short-term profitability targets, whereas as insurers, we have a good citizenship responsibility in the society. We are here to protect people. We are here to protect societies. So don't forget this.
Thank you. So for the last round, we have only 2 minutes left, but we can maybe extend it 5 minutes. Do you want to come in and say some last 2 words? I mean, yeah, please, Olaf.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention really the importance of good policy making, because as we heard, insurers can play a role, but really the policymakers are really needed, especially in certain of these risks. Just to give 2 different examples. One is in the case of Japan with the building codes, where they started having earthquake-related building codes in 1924, and they updated them at various times. They made a big update in 1981, and as an example, they had a very big earthquake in 1995, and in that earthquake, those homes that were built before 1981 based on the old system, which was still quite good, had 34% of them were almost undamaged, or minor or no damage. But those homes that were built with the standards after 1981, 75% of them were undamaged. So it made a huge effect in terms of avoiding costs, which of course means lower premiums, more insurability, more affordability. If we take a different case in the US, where there are some states that have a price control, so they're trying to avoid the customer suffering a high price by just saying the insurer cannot increase their price. That's despite, of course, the actual claims and the costs are going up. So in those cases, while those risks in most cases are still insurable, the insurers have left the market. And often that's been blamed on climate change. But the main reason in those cases is actually the regulation, which makes it impossible to make a profit, which means the companies have to withdraw because they can't knowingly run an unprofitable business. So the regulation and policy making can really help in the case of investment, in the case of building codes. Bad regulation can actually harm and create uninsurability. So the good policy making is really key.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emma. It's very important. So maybe Zorana, you have some last words? Yeah? Okay?
So I think.
Okay. Atınç?
I think it's time for execution.
Yeah, time for execution, yeah. So Mark, do you want to
I
come in?
believe there was no question whatsoever, so I
So
believe
we have questions. We have
very
2
clear.
questions. I'll raise it to you. So yeah. Thank you very much. There are very good questions. Maybe I want to raise. First of all, one is, I wonder how growing rate is about parametric insurance all around the world. Is it a cheap product when you compare to traditional insurance products? Parametric insurance, one question. Maybe you want to...
Can I have it again, please?
I wonder how growing rate is in what rate the parametric insurance is growing in the world. Is it a good product or not? One question you may answer. And the other one, how our governments and insurance companies should share uninsured losses against NatCat to protect the gap. What is the homework for insurers and reinsurers? The other question, despite effort by the Turkish catastrophe insurance pool, there remains a significant under-insurance problem in residential and commercial property sectors. I think we may answer it, Atınç. And last, I would like to discuss the issue of aging risk worldwide. How can we emphasize the importance of this topic in Turkey and raise the awareness among public? Thank you very much. I want to have to close the session. So please come for parametric insurance. Do you think that it will be having attention of the,
Well, I don't know if you have... Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Well, parametric is quite new. I mean, all these years it has been now experienced, and it is a very good experience. So parametric has a cost, but when we look at the price in the PNC market these days, we can say that it is a good solution. So the advantage of it is that you have a full payment right away as an insurer, not so you don't have to send claims which can have months or years to be indemnified. So that is why the parametric insurance is a bit more costly than the traditional. Then you have to, when you buy a parametric, the two key factors are first the trigger. What is the magnitude of a quake above which you are covered? Of course, the prices are lowering when the trigger is down. So if you want to borrow, if you want to make economies on your reinsurance cost, it could be interesting to maybe have parametric insurance on some targeted area. Having said that, targeted areas, and we know the zones in Istanbul, because there are vendor maps and all the reinsurers are pretty much aware of it. So when you put, for instance, the islands in the Marmara Sea region, yes, this will have a cost. But I mean, if the trigger is well calibrated, if the zone is well calibrated, it's a very interesting solution, knowing that sometimes the capacity of it comes from other markets as well, not only reinsurance capacity.
Thank you. So maybe the next question to Olaf: how our governments and insurance companies should share the uninsured losses against the not cat protection gap? What is the homework for insurers, etc.? I mean, can you maybe summarize it in a few words?
Well, I think uninsured means they're not paying a premium. So that's a real challenge for a company to pay out money for someone who's not paying for a service. I think that has to be done through with a partnership system. Yeah. The insurance company can be very efficient at distributing, at creating parametric or other innovations in order to work out who gets what. Yeah. But I think ultimately the funding for those that are uninsured has to come from the government.
Yeah. I think we have a good example in this. The TCIP is a very good PPP project, So, but although this the one of the floor, our question is, despite the effort of the Turkish TCIP, there remains a significant underinsurance problem in residential and commercial areas. I mean, I have to mention that TCIP is not covering the commercial areas, but which are can be considered very small SMEs, maybe dentists, things like that, or tailors, which are functioning in this residential area. But other than that, it's not covering. So let's say residential perspective. Why do you think that, Atinç, maybe from your perspective, is it a matter of distribution? Is it a matter of the positioning?
Well, I mean, I think I have tried to address this. Yes, it is a combination of awareness, information, poor distribution, and also affordability. Combination of all these, I think, is a fact. And the most worrying part for me, even after the Maraş earthquake, when we look at the penetration of TCIP, still more or less 50, 55, 56%. So despite the cases are happening, we are not able to increase it. So we need to look at it. I think we need to think outside of the box. It's time to step back. If this model, okay, product is good, but if the distribution is the right one, should we do it maybe part of the real estate tax or something maybe much more seamless, making a different distribution model? I don't know. These are the rough ideas, but
like embedded.
Like embedded, rather than try to sell individual and then you see lots of gaps and the mistakes and people are suffering. Maybe we should just, because and then we need to have the protection for those people who have these assets and buildings. And there are different ways when we look at it. And I am sure when we look at as an insurance sector with the different stakeholders, I think it's time to look at it. what else we can do and alternatively to reach the even a better outcome of this.
Thank you. So I think we come to an end. I want to, there are a few questions more, but I have to finish the session because everybody is hungry, I think. I want to thank my distinguished panelists for joining us and giving your insights with the floor. Sizlere de dinlediğiniz için çok çok teşekkürler. Bizde de sabırla. Ayrılmadan önce sanırım bir kapanış duyurusu var.
Teşekkür ediyoruz Sayın Özgür Obalı'ya.
Teşekkür ederiz.
Ama bırakmıyoruz sizi.
Peki niye?
Yani her panelin sonunda plaket veriliyor
Evet.
konuşmacılarımıza.
We
Aslında
want to make the
plaket,
panel
evet.
with
Peki sahneye alalım.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, please.
Plaketler arkadaşlar.
We want to make a memory.
Zorana Peyçik, Source Akademi CEO'su. Hemen. Türkiye Sigorta Birliği Genel Sekreteri Sayın Özgür Obalı. Zorana Peyçik, Source Akademi CEO'su. Teşekkür ediyoruz. Avrupa Insurance Europe Genel Direktör Yardımcısı Olaf Jones plaketini alıyor.
Thank you.
Mark Büker, Skor Güney Akdeniz, Kuzey Afrika Yönetim Kurulu üyesi ve pazar yöneticisi plaketini alıyor. Plaketini alanlar sahnede kalıyorlar. Lütfen buyurun ve Atınç Yılmaz, Howden Re CEO'su ve Başkanı plaketini alıyor. Evet, şimdi de birlikte bir fotoğraf çekiliyoruz hep beraber. Zirve fotoğrafı. Buraya bakıyoruz. Look at me.